Hello and welcome to Video Podcast 12.5. In this vodcast, I will overview the types of clouds. Okay, so what are clouds? Clouds are made of millions and millions of minute water droplets or tiny ice crystals. The clouds that are composed of ice crystals will occur very high in the atmosphere, whereas the lower and middle clouds will be made of minute water droplets. In Chapter 11, we talked about the importance of aerosols in our atmosphere, and those tiny little bits of dust or smoke or ocean salt can serve as condensation nuclei for those little droplets to form on. So keep this in mind. Some of the key ingredients for cloud formation include saturated air, an air parcel that can rise and cool adiabatically, an air parcel that can be forced high enough to reach the condensation level, which is where the dew point temperature occurs, and we need the presence of condensation nuclei because when water vapor starts to condense, it needs something to condense on. Okay, let's shift our attention to cloud classification. There are two primary classification means, and on this slide we're going to talk about cloud classification that's based on form. All of the clouds that you see in the sky on a daily basis can be lumped into one of three categories. We have cirrus clouds, stratus clouds, and cumulus clouds. A good general description for cirrus clouds are high, white, thin, delicate, wispy ice crystal clouds. These are the clouds that occur in the highest regions of the troposphere, and due to that fact they will be composed of ice crystals. The next classification I'd like to discuss is stratus. Stratus clouds will form sheets or layers that cover much of the sky. And stratus clouds are also going to be located in the lower regions of our atmosphere. The third and final classification based on form is cumulus. Cumulus clouds are globular cloud masses, and they're often cotton-like in appearance. In fact, the picture you see on this slide is a picture of cumulus clouds, and they look like big floating cotton balls. Now, it's also important to note that if you see nimbus in the name of a cloud, we're talking about a cloud that will produce precipitation. And on the coming slides, I will overview nimbostratus clouds and cumulonimbus clouds. A second way that we can classify clouds is based on height. And although I've already alluded to this in my previous discussion, I think this picture you see on this slide is very important. So I strongly recommend that you pause the video and take some time to unpack all the information in this image. Because this image shows us cloud classification based on both form and height. Let's start off by looking at all the high clouds, which are the clouds that occur above a height of 6,000 meters in our atmosphere. The high clouds that we need to know are cirrus clouds, cirrostratus clouds, and cirrocumulus clouds. The cirrus clouds are high, white, thin, and wispy. The cirrostratus clouds will be thin, flat layers of clouds that occur very high in our atmosphere. And then the cirrocumulus clouds will look like little tiny fluffy cotton balls. But all three of the clouds I just described are going to be classified as high clouds. Now let's take a look at the middle height clouds. The two that we'll talk about are altostratus and altocumulus. Altostratus clouds, just like cirrostratus clouds, will occur in sheets or layers, and they'll very often blanket most of the sky. The altocumulus clouds don't look that much different than the cirrocumulus clouds in this image, but notice that they are larger and denser than the cirrocumulus clouds. It should be noted that the middle height clouds will occur at an altitude between 2,000 and 6,000 meters, or 6,500 to 20,000 feet. Now let's shift our attention to the low clouds, and the low clouds will be the types that occur closest to Earth's surface. We have two types of stratus clouds that are going to be classified as low height clouds. The first one is named stratus, the second one is named nimbostratus. The only difference between those two types of clouds is that one produces rain and the other doesn't. It's important to note that the rainfall associated with nimbostratus clouds is not typically going to be of an intense variety. Nimbostratus clouds will usually produce light to moderate rainfall, and they are not associated with thunderstorms, hail, or tornadoes. Now if we focus our attention to the cumulus clouds, the globular masses, the stratocumulus clouds are the lowest of the cumulus form. Just like the other types of cumulus clouds that we've considered, they look like large fluffy cotton balls. Now there's one special form of cloud that doesn't really fit the low, medium, and high height classification system, because these clouds can undergo towering vertical development in our atmosphere. The first type you see here is the cumulus cloud, which looks like a big huge chunk of popcorn. Cumulus clouds can develop some vertical thickness, which you see here, but it's the cumulonimbus clouds that will produce the powerful thunderstorms that we've all experienced. Okay, to conclude this video podcast, I'd like to take a look at some pictures and provide some very general bullet point descriptions of what you should know for each of these types of clouds. The first type of cloud I'll overview is the one you see on the left side of this screen, and that's cirrus clouds. Cirrus clouds will be thin, wispy, delicate ice crystal clouds, and they sometimes have hooked filaments called mare's tails. And if you know anything about horses, that would make a lot of sense to you when you look at this picture. Another high cloud that we overviewed on the previous slide was cirrostratus clouds. Cirrostratus clouds will be thin, flat sheets of white ice crystals. And these clouds can produce a milky look in the sky, and they can also produce halos. In fact, in this image you see a halo, and that halo is formed because sunlight has to pass through that cirrostratus cloud. So that really cool optical effect occurs because of cirrostratus clouds. Now the other type of cloud you see shown in this image are nimbostratus clouds. The prefix nimbo tells us that these clouds will produce rain, and being as they're stratus clouds, they will be low clouds. Stratus clouds are going to be typically associated with atmospheric stability, because when low clouds are forming, we're typically talking about air parcels that are resisting vertical displacement. On this slide we see the three different types of cumulus clouds, namely cumulus, altocumulus, and cirrocumulus. But if we start at the left, the cumulus clouds will look cotton-like in their appearance. I think they look like large cotton balls or large pieces of popcorn. Now the altocumulus clouds will be the middle height cumulus clouds. Altocumulus clouds are globular masses that differ from cirrocumulus clouds in that they're larger and denser. And then if we take a look at the picture showing cirrocumulus clouds, these are fluffy masses located high up in our atmosphere. And for the final cloud type that we'll consider in this vodcast, let's take a look at cumulonimbus clouds. Cumulonimbus clouds are towering clouds that often have anvil heads. To me, the tops of these clouds can look like a mushroom cloud that you'd see after a nuclear explosion. Cumulonimbus clouds are associated with heavy rainfall, thunder, lightning, hail, and tornadoes. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but in Chapter 14 we'll talk about severe weather, and these clouds here are usually the culprits of that severe weather. Okay, that concludes this video podcast. In our next video, we will look at the formation and the types of precipitation.